I see there is people arriving, so hello and welcome everybody to Melbourne and Victoria. I'll just give it a few seconds to see how, or to allow people to log on, um, and then I'll just kick off. So that seems to have settled now. So a very warm welcome from myself. I'm Barbara and I work for Visit Victoria, and I want to introduce you today to the highlights of Melbourne and Victoria. So let's kick off with whereabouts we are. And you can find us in the southeast of the continent. And in fact, it's a Mediterranean climate zone. So if you think of Melbourne and Victoria, think of kind of the south of France type weather. And we're often called the smallest state on Australia's mainland. And whilst that's true, please don't think that that means the state is small. In fact, it's actually the size of the UK, roughly. And so if you think about how you would travel from Land's End to John O'Groats, you wouldn't enjoy it very much or wouldn't see very much if you traveled that distance in a day or two. And the same is true here. So you'll have to just spend that little bit more time and you'll have an absolutely fabulous experience. So on to Victoria in a nutshell. This looks a little geeky, but it is actually quite popular in training events. So I call it Victoria in a nutshell. And the first thing you'll notice here about Victoria is that it has a green tinge, because Victoria is quite a green state. And that's in contrast to, say, for example, the red centre, or if you were to say Queensland might be turquoise. Victoria is very green with huge rainforests, eucalyptus forests, rolling green hills, vineyards. So that's the first thing to notice. And then at the heart of the state, you find Melbourne. Surrounding Melbourne, Melbourne sits on the Port Phillip Bay, which is an almost circular inland sea, sea, and it's surrounded by two arms, which are the two peninsulas, the Bellarine Peninsula and the Mornington Peninsula. And just below that, you find Phillip Island, that little penguin here, where one of our most famous attractions sits, the Phillip Island Penguin Parade. Now, over here on the left, you see that little camper van that marks where the Great Ocean Road is. And the Great Ocean Road broadly falls into two parts: the Sunshine Coast with turquoise waters and sandy beaches, and the Shipwreck Coast, where you find, the rocky shores and rock formations of the 12 Apostles. Now, north of that, you find the Grampians Mountains. They're about 1,001 meters high. And right above that, the Murray River, which forms the border with New South Wales. And that little heart here, at its heart, you've got Echuca, which is a paddle steamer capital. Here you find the gold mining and gold rush era historic attractions such as Sovereign Hill. And over on the right-hand side, we've got the Great Alpine Road and our alpine region with mountains of up to 2,000 meters height. And that little dolphin here marks the 90-mile beach and the Gippsland Lakes. And all of those I will say a little bit more about in a minute. So Victoria really is a paradise for self-drive holidays. What you find in Victoria is the highest diversity of landscapes in Australia, and that really makes driving around quite interesting. Sites are very close together and very changing, so you see a lot of different changing variety and scenery on a daily basis. And because things are really close together, you can spend less time in the car and actually more time outdoors and enjoy that Australia holiday. And one of the key reasons people enjoy their trip to Victoria so much is because it's a great wildlife state. This is the state where you see the wildlife in the wild in many, many guaranteed places. And that's because of that equation you see here: 3% of Australia's landmass and 30% of Australia's wildlife call that their home. And there are many, many places where you can see koalas, kangaroos, wallabies, but even platypus, or echidnas or wombats, guaranteed in the wild. So it's a great place to visit. It's also a really nice place for gourmet trips. We've got some fabulous world-class wine regions. There's 5 distinct wine regions, and there's some really, really lovely ways of experiencing those, whether they are just dropping into a cellar door or whether you want to do a guided tour or just simply have a picnic bicycle with pre-arranged picnic stops and tasting stops en route. Really lovely ways of exploring the wine heritage of the area. Now, Victoria has 4 very famous touring routes, and here they are. You've got the green, which is the Great Southern Touring Route. So that's got the Great Ocean Road on it, on the Grampians, for example. And then you've got that little yellow circle there, which is the Go Beyond Melbourne Touring Route. Within a 90-minute circuit or catchment area of Melbourne, you find 4 very distinct regions, and they are very fascinating to explore. So that's what the Go Beyond Melbourne Touring Route shows you. And then you've got the 2 epic routes, the Sydney-Melbourne Inland Discovery and the Sydney-Melbourne Coastal Discovery. In reality, most people do a little bit of everything. And now we come to Melbourne. Melbourne is really famous. It's a great gateway into Australia, and it is really famous for its laneways, street arts, rooftop bars, and being really, great for coffee. It is an independent city. Walking around and shopping there is a delight, actually, because the Melburnians love their little independent designers. They don't like high street quite so much. So you will find a lot of things that only exist here, and plenty of wonderful souvenirs. One thing that's really amazing to do in Melbourne, and that you can do here more so than in most other Australian cities, is experience the urban heritage. The Aboriginal heritage. And personally, I think a beautiful way to start your Australia holiday is with a Aboriginal welcome to country ceremony. And the way to do that in Melbourne is to start off with an Aboriginal heritage walk in the Royal Botanic Garden. This is now packaged up, and you can follow that up with a tour of the really fascinating sites that you can still discover right in the heart of Melbourne with the Koori Heritage Trust. And then you can top it all off with a Indigenous fine dining meal at restaurant Charcoal Lane, which is also a social enterprise project where young Aboriginals are helped with a career in hospitality. This is a really nice package, and this is relatively new, and it's a wonderful way of experiencing the Aboriginal heritage of the area. Now, on Melbourne's doorstep, it's, as I said, a lot of variety of landscapes. What you're seeing here is the really famous beach huts on the Mornington Peninsula. It's a great place to just hang out and soak up the sun. If you've been on a drive already, it's a good place to chill. And then also there's some plenty of wonderful vineyards there to experience. Obviously, the most famous attraction on Victoria's or on Melbourne's doorstep is the Phillip Island Penguin Parade, and really everybody should go and visit it, not just because it's very cute. You see there's a colony of 32,000 penguins, and you can watch every evening as penguins come back ashore and waddle back to their burrows. It's also a not-for-profit attraction, so you can go and do good. By visiting here, every dollar invested saves the colony and is reinvested in saving the penguins of Phillip Island. And most visitors will head from Melbourne to Phillip Island and see the Penguin Parade, and they will then take the ferry from the Mornington Peninsula across to the Bellarine Peninsula and join the Great Ocean Road. You remember those 2 arms? So a great stopping off and very popular stopping off point is the Peninsula Hot Springs, not too far from the ferry terminal. You can just chill out there for a few hours or overnight now in their glamping tents. And as I said, it's very popular. Now, onto the Great Ocean Road. This is one of the most scenic coastal drives in the world. And I just want to point out here that it isn't a road. I often get asked this. It's not a route, it is a road. And it's 151 miles of glorious scenery, very changeable, as I said earlier on, turquoise water, golden beaches on the one side. Then you have the rainforest of the Otway National Park, one of the places where you are guaranteed to see koalas in the wild, before you then move on to what you see here in the picture, the rocky shores of the 12 Apostles. You've got about 40 kilometers, that's about 27 miles worth of rock formations on the shore. Absolutely worthwhile visiting every one of them, or at least a few. Don't just stop at the 12 Apostles. And we have a fantastic new attraction at Wildlife Wonders, which is in Apollo Bay, not too far from on the Great Ocean Road, not too far from the 12 Apostles. It's a fantastic new attraction that allows visitors to see some of the rarer species as if in the wild. There is no fence between visitors and the animals, and you walk through a variety of different habitat zones with the guide, who will interpret the flora and the sounds of the bush for you and point out these animals. It's a great chance to actually see some of the endangered animals of the Otway region, as well as also support their conservation. This is also a not-for-profit organization. Then we move on to the north, the Grampians. And we've got a new attraction there called the Grampians Peaks Trail. Now, the Grampians is a mountain range of about 1,000 meters, and you now have a walking trail that traverses the entire Grampians region. Oh, am I out of time?
Hi, yeah, we're just about ready to come to the Q&A. Have you got much left? Not much left to go?
I will probably just quickly then mention the Gippsland and Wilson's Promontory National Park, because that is another one of those highlights. It's an absolute crown jewel of a national park that is a must-visit attraction. So that is probably still the most important things to get in. That was the fastest 15 minutes ever.
I know. Well, we've got 4 minutes left for questions from agents here today. We've had a couple come in. Carol is planning a motorhome trip for one of her clients. So she's asking about what parking is like for motorhomes. Is there specific parks for it and parking, and what's the approximate cost per day?
You will need to pre-book, and it depends on the season. But if you are traveling in the Australian summer season, as in our winter, you will need to pre-book. Now, the cost varies on which route you traverse and where you want to stay. But absolutely pre-book, and these stays are available. There's no problem. But arrange it as soon as possible if you're traveling in their summer.
Great. And Elaine has asked, what time of year can you see the penguin chicks?
Oh, actually throughout the entire year. So the penguin parade is open every day, and the spectacle takes place every evening and you can see it. And the penguin chicks you can see all throughout the entire year as well.
Oh, great. Aidan is asking how many apostles are left standing.
Gosh, I think it's 8. It never actually was 12. So I think it was 8 and one of them crumbled. It might now be 7. Gosh, I shouldn't be caught out on that one. But just to mention, it never actually was 12. They were just called the 12 Apostles because, of that kind of formation.
Great. And Amanda is asking, how long would you suggest staying in Wilson's National Park?
Oh, at least one night, and the place to stay is Tidal River. It's where the National Park Centre is, and that's where you're absolutely guaranteed to see the wombats come out in the evening, and you're pretty likely to see wallabies as well, and some of the really colourful bird life. That's the place to stay. If you want to spend a bit more time, and I really love outdoors and hiking, just stay longer. It is a very, very special place. Personally, I would like to stay at least 2 nights, if not more.
Okay, great. Those are all the questions we've had so far. Did you want to, you've probably got time for one more slide if you wanted to mention something else that we had to skip over.
I should probably also mention the poll so that people are aware. But if I have a bit more time, then I'll talk about the Pennycote Wilderness Journey as well, because that is a bit special. That is a new cruise that you can do off the coast of Wilson's Prom, from Tidal River, in fact. And it takes you to this pretty mysterious rock called Skull Rock. The opening is so huge you could fit the Sydney Opera House in it. And if you just look here, that's the excursion boat. It is a fantastic experience. It takes you to Skull Rock and the most southerly point of Australia's continent. And en route, you're pretty likely to see dolphins and seals, and in season also whales. I had a tremendous experience there where we had 2 humpbacks surface just by the side of the boat. You could have touched them. It was incredible. So great. I would recommend that.
Thank you very much.